Okay. Confidence intervals. Is actually equal to the mean or any statistics like proportion plus or minus C okay, you have that in the slides, and you know how to calculate those things. So you don't need to copy anything. Times the standard error. And let's say you want to calculate the 95% confidence intervals so that the alpha is 0.05 and C for 0. For this one is 1.96. And the standard error for mean is equal to SD over the square root of n. Okay, it's just a recap of last week. But for this week, we need to calculate the confidence intervals of a proportion. Which is equal to the P plus or minus C, the same thing. Actually, the equation is the same, but the standard error for a proportion you have that in your slides, which is equal to these things. Okay, let me write it down. Square root of P times 1 minus P over N. Okay, the margin of error for a survey is the confidence intervals of when P equal to 0.5. Okay, in the question, it tells you the sample size is 1008. Actually, in order to calculate the margin of error for a survey, what you only need is the sample size. So you just plug in the numbers 0.5 plus or minus 1.96 times the SE. You will get the answer And you can use Excel to do that. P is equal to 0.5. And the SE, no. And the N, sample size is 1008. SE, standard error, is equal to P times 1 minus P over N, and then square root the whole thing. You can do it by hand if you like, but it seems easier to calculate by Excel, at least for me. And then 1.96 times the SE is equal to, of course, 1.96 times this number. And now you know that the margin of error is plus or minus 3.1%. Or if you like some precision. Okay. Questions? Okay, no question. Then I move on. Yeah, yeah. Actually, for percentage, it's no point to make it too precise. Yeah, but you are correct. And the second question is, what is the 95% confidence intervals of the 60.4 percentage reported above? And again, this is a question of plugging in the numbers into the equation and then you get the answers type of questions. And but this time, you will have the P equal to 0.604. Xn equal to 1008. So you just plug in the numbers and then you will get the answer. Because we have the Excel set up, so we can just change this one a little bit so that you get the answer. You just change this to 0604 and all the numbers will change accordingly. And the 95% CI is equal to the plus or minus of this little guy here, right? So the lower bound and the upper bound the lower bound is equal to the P minus this guy, and the upper bound is equal to your P plus this guy. And so that you can report that the 95% confidence intervals is from 57.4% to 63.4%. And again, what is the meaning of that 95% confidence intervals? It's meaning the researcher or Hong Kong UPOP have a 95% confidence that the true population proportion is within this range. Okay. Okay, question 3. The question is, can we say the current approval rating of CY Leung improved significantly from the previous week? Okay, in the previous week, the approval rating is 61.6. This week is 60.4. You should know that this is not a significant improvement. There are two ways to answer this question. The first way is that this change is within the margin of error for this survey, so that the difference of only 1.6%, 1.2% is not larger than the sampling error. And the other way to answer this question is to, okay, this one is for this week. And we can also calculate the 95% confidence intervals for the results from the previous week. And we just plug in the number 616. And the sample size is 1018. And we can populate the results because the sample size is very similar, so that the standard error is nearly the same, and you can also calculate the 95% confidence intervals for the previous week. Let's make it format show. And we can draw these two 95% confidence intervals on a number line. I hope that you still remember what is the number line. Okay, for the previous week, this is for the previous week. And for this week, it's a little bit less. Should be something like that. And you can, as you can see from the number line, these regions are overlapped, right? And if the confidence intervals are overlapped, we can conclude that there is no significant change or significant difference between these two. But in a situation, you get a confidence intervals like this. There is no overlap between these two confidence intervals. You can say that the change is significant. But from this calculation, we know that confidence intervals overlap with each other, so that there is no significant change. So the answer for this one is no. And question 4 is a massive one. And question 4 asks you to calculate the 95% confidence intervals for all these survey. Okay, we can do that. But the first step is to copy all this data into Excel. But I don't know whether I can do that. Let me try. And what matter is just this row and this row. And zoom it in. And in order to do that, okay, the first step is to calculate the SE and the lower and upper. Okay, the SE is equal to the square root. Okay, it will be better for you to change this column into a proportion by using the format shell and then change it to numbers instead of percentage. Okay, let's do it again. Square root p times 1 minus p over n, and then square root the whole thing. You will get the standard error. And the lower bound is equal to the percentage itself, p itself, minus 1.96 times the SE, and the upper bound is P plus 1.96 times the SE, okay, you did that for question 1, for question 2, I guess, yeah. And what you need to do now is to populate all these to all the shells. And by doing so, you get all the confidence intervals for all the survey. And in the second part of this question, it asks you to plot the confidence intervals as a line chart. And what you need to do actually is just plot these two columns as a chart, line chart. And highlight the lower and the upper, and then click this one. And instantly you get a graph, but it will be better for you to change the x-axis, because the x-axis only tell you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is not good. Actually, the x-axis should be the date. So you should change that to the date, and it can be done by right-click any one of the lines, and then right-click it, and then select data. And there is a little guy here called category axis label, and then select all the dates here. It will change to date, and pretty much answers the questions. And also, comment on when did the approval rating of CY change significantly recently. And this question is a little bit hard. I think it's easier to find it out from the numbers rather than from the graphs. If you need to find it from the graph, you need a ruler or things like that. But if you want to find it out by the chart, which is easier, I mean from the data is easier. And from the number, you can see that these two are overlap, right? The numbers, the 95% confidence intervals are overlap, right? And then you did that again. Okay, overlap, because these number and these number cross each other. Still overlap, right? And you do this exercise. One by one, and then in this week, the numbers are not overlap because this one is 48, 49 to 55.6. 55.6, but this one start from 56.6, so that the 95% confidence intervals is not overlap. Okay, and from that, okay, you can see it from the results here also. You can see that the change in the disapproval to CY Leung change by a difference of 7% in these 2 weeks, and which is of course larger than the margin of error. Okay, now you know when the approval rating of CY Leung changed significantly. And it is for you to find out what happened during that week. You can see that CY approval rating haven't changed much from that week up to now. Right? So it's for your own research to find out what happened during that week. Try to read the news and then report something here. And the last question is another explain kind of question now, which you can find the answer from the slides. So it's up to your responsibility to find out the answer by yourself. And also again, make sure that you know how to answer this question. Yeah, because this question is very important. And yeah, if you have no question about this week assignment, you can leave now. And see you next week. Next week assignment is the final assignment. You can have 2 weeks to do that. And that assignment is like a grand finale assignment. You need to use all the knowledge you learned from the previous 7 tutorials to complete that. And the last tutorial will be a revision, so that I can prepare you for the exam. Make sure that you come to that tutorial. And sphere.